Insurance, and we're here to announce Brent Lawrence, who's the operations manager for a company that assisted companies throughout New Zealand, Australia, and beyond. He assisted managers in divisions of Fortune 500 companies as well as small to medium enterprises. He provided personality assessments that would match specific financial objectives in tandem with personality and corporate culture metrics. Brent developed a sociometric tool that specifically quantifies corporate culture akin to the DNA structure of the human body. The concept of the corporate culture can now be empirically determined.
Yes, that's it. That's great. Good day. So I was born in Emmanuel Hospital, just a couple blocks away, and went to high school here in the Portland area. Went to University of Oregon and OSU, so I'm a platypus. After that, I went to Arizona State University and got my MBA in cross-cultural communications, international affairs, and I am bilingual in Spanish and English. I do speak German. I also was an exchange student to Norway, so my Norwegian, I used it actually last week and it actually worked. It's been a long time since I spoke Norwegian. So when I was actually a production manager for Nintendo. My career was, after some changes, my career wasn't going where I wanted it to, so I talked to my former boss who was from Christchurch, New Zealand. I said, Andy, my career is rubbish. He said, mate, go to New Zealand. Got off the plane, 2 days, didn't know a soul. Got off the plane 2 days later, I got employed by a company that provided psychological testing profiles for corporations around the globe. I got hired and I stayed there for 10 years. And I came back to the United States, back forth. And so I speak with an American accent, but I have to be quite honest with you, I think New Zealander and Australian, so I'm still at times going through cross-cultural shock being back on these shores. And it's funny, the worst thing for me is roundabouts. When I approach a roundabout, I want to go left, and that's not a good thing. So I have to always think, stay right, and other things too as well that tells me that I need to think that I'm back in the United States. So if I make a faux pas, forgive me and ask me why. We'll have a Q&A for 20 minutes. At this. By the way, when I was in New Zealand, I kept watching people with their resume, 10,000 resumes a month would come across my desk. It was just tons and tons of resumes, tons of profiles. Everyone talked about their company or about their desire, I'm passionate about this, I'm passionate about that. That was always in their cover letters. So it really intrigued me to actually look at what does passion mean. And it's a very complex Latin word. It's Roman. It's very complex, and it can mean romance, it can mean desire in one's career, it can mean also suffering. You know, one is the Passion of the Christ as an example. There's a movie out about that. So I actually developed an assessment tool, behavioral tool, that measures how people are passionate. And I did it both in PG language, it's not anything tardy or tawdry or anything like that, on passion, and I also then developed Systems app, which is for how do organizations work? And people kept talking about corporate culture. What's my corporate culture? I actually designed and developed an assessment that actually quantifies a company's corporate culture. So I can actually define it. And I am passionately involved in corporations and organizations to show how can they be the best that they are. And I developed the tool that actually defines that. For this purpose, I actually went down the pike and observed, to my shock, that people's wiring actually were an indication of their desire for architecture, interior design, and landscaping. And I actually put on a seminar for real estate agents from RE/MAX down in Southern Oregon, one of the best RE/MAX locations in Southern Oregon. And the realtor said, it's dead on, you nailed it. It's your profiling, your PowerPoint slides, it is exactly what we knew intuitively as successful realtors. We knew this. You actually defined it, and they said this must grow and go. And so my passion is also, I built my own home in Southern Oregon from scratch. I had the foundation done by don't muck with your foundation, but from there on up I took it to myself, and I really saw how people's passion was indicative of what they loved in terms of architecture. As remodelers, is everyone here a remodeler, by the way? Every single person is in the remodeling industry. Is there anyone else, any psychologists? Any psychologists? You have a psychology background?
I got a degree.
That's fantastic. We can talk about these are behavioral attributes, not personality. Personality of the big five. Excuse me. This is on transactional analysis. And so that's what, and so it comes from that, and ask me questions on that so I can go into that. So they then said, you need to go forward because you're speaking to how people are passionate about the homes that they choose, or they need to be remodeled, or the interior design, or the landscaping. I said, all right, let's go for it. So, go. Why? Why does it do that? There we go. So, as an example, let me just go back one here. So the 4 elements that are in our daily lives, this comes from the ancient Greeks, Aristotle was one of them, speaks of the universe in terms of fire, air, earth, and water. Some of you may have heard this, some of you may not have, but this is a construct about how we see everything that is all around us. I live on the Pacific Ocean down in Gold Beach, and literally I see water, the ocean, and I see the air, the sun, maybe, and the earth behind it. So I definitely live the 4 classical elements that was laid out by the ancient Greeks. We see this, interesting enough, with the red, yellow, green, and blue. Look at this, very interesting. The logos that we see around us that are at us every single day. Microsoft has those colors there. Google has their colors in there. Chrome from Google was putting those colors in there as well. It's very interesting where we see this subconsciously that's coming into our lives. There's a fitness company out of Colorado. My colleague is from Denver, Colorado. It's called the 4 Elements Fitness. There was a really funky movie called The Fifth Element. It was many years ago. In there they talked about the 4 elements that brought everything together, and the woman, the 5th element, was love, and she destroyed the evil empire that was going to destroy the earth. And they talked heavily about the 4 elements. I watch that movie and I laugh all the time when I see that. It's really quite amazing. So fire is indicative of red energy, and these are the extrovert energies, and these are the introvert energies, behaviors. Fire or red energy is your tangential, make it happen. I want to only get to 2 points. Red energy. So when someone, like they're red hot fire, they're on fire, let's make it happen. The yellow energy is more of an inclusive team extrovert energy, but mañana, we'll get to it. Let's talk about it. Roles are really important in the yellow energy. Your green energy is your accountants, engineers. They're systematic, they're introvert. Interesting, when I laughed, green visors used to be the genre of accountants in the old days. They used to wear green, they didn't wear red, they didn't wear yellow or blue, they wore green visors, and then they would do accounting work. Fascinating, the association. And blue is an introvert energy, it's your creative, far-reaching, very much based on always knowing why we're doing what we're doing. So it's and so you have clients, you have workers, you have colleagues, and you as yourself are wired in these colors. I put these glasses out here because really in many ways how we see the world is we put these glasses on because from our personality, our behavioral styles, we actually filter the world based on what we see, what we have inside of us. And so we relate to people. It's funny, isn't it? Like 25% of the people out there we can actually relate to. I get this person. A lot of the people out there are like, what the heck is going on? They're either too aggressive, they get to the point too fast, I don't trust them. They talk too much, they talk and talk and talk, which I'm one of those, by the way, I want to forewarn. They go always into the history in the past, and they always are systematic, and they're always the bookkeeper, and their heads are down. Or they just talk endlessly about why do we need to do this, and why, and I really need to understand, I need to have deep understanding, and I need to, and like, geez Louise, how much more understanding do we need? All of those 4 colors are representational of things that we either can relate to or we do not like. So think about that with your colleagues, the workers that are in your environs, how do they work through the process? People, who are the people who are the red, yellow, green, and blue? Richard Branson is a red, take charge, Virgin Atlantic, make it happen kind of guy. Let's go, go, go. By the way, it's not just blokes who are extrovert. There are many women I've had as clients. I have a family full of them. So they are very much red to the point and make it happen. I have 5 sisters who are red, off the charts red. And then there's the Tony Robbins, who's also very yellow. He's just this Mr. Talk, talk, talk. He doesn't really make Virgin Airlines, but he talks about Virgin Airlines. Then you got Bill Gates, who's very systematic, very organized. I lived in Bellevue. I actually lived in Clyde Hill, Washington for a while when I worked for Nintendo. His house was not too far from mine. What did he do with his house? He went underground. Interesting, isn't it? He went underground to hide because he didn't want to have this lavish mansion. He could afford any mansion in the world. He made his mansion happen in the Bellevue area, and I laughed because he put it down under the ground. His programming in DOS is very left brain. It's a very left brain process. When I actually learned DOS, that's how old I am. And it's very systematic left brain. Whereas Wozniak, on the other hand, was the creative Apple guy. It's very right brain, and he's an introvert as well. A very creative and entrepreneurial style, but a very creative style, and Apple products are very creative compared to the Microsoft products. And I'm making a generalization here, and you can argue with me after class. So the classical elements of the colors are also, with the fire, the wind, the earth, and the water, you also have an interesting, and this is from me, this is what I had realized, especially when it comes to architecture. Red is direct, straight up and down, because that's how the personality behavior, or the behavioral attributes actually work. It's just to the point, make it happen. At a side is your yellow energy. It's kind of inclusive, it's kind of lax, it's kind of not lazy, but it's going to get there, but it's more of it at an angle energy. Your earth energies are flat, very, very flat, very much horizontal. And your water energies are zeros or waves, okay? So, which is representational of water. When I see crests of waves coming in off the ocean, they create an O, in essence, with the wave coming around. And we'll get to that as to why that's the case with regarding to your industry. Back to the movie, the fifth element, I had to laugh because the blue is the water, the green is the earth. The red, the fire should have been straight up and down, and by the way, they did it incorrect. They should have hired me to help them out. They didn't do this right. This should have been lifted up into the extrovert range, and your yellow, wavy, I can go with that, but this was not correct. It should have been brought up here into the upper realms based on the technology that I had observed and I had developed myself. So I literally created the team based on, and I don't want to get too technical because it'll take hours and hours and hours, and you'll hate my guts if I go there. But we, in essence, have a foundation as to how we're wired in our colors. How are we foundationally wired to do what we do? Which means when you're under stress or you're motivated, how do you communicate? And we all know those people, and we're probably them themselves as well. When I'm under stress, I'm a different dog. Okay? You can be either red, green, yellow, blue when you're in the stress mode, or if you're motivated. I'm motivated to get the work done this way. However, in the middle, and this, by the way, is by birth. Foundation is basically indication of birth. The next realm is structure, which is the societal structure. We learn that by age 6, 7, or 8 in school. We should do this. We ought to do that. So in the Oregon public school systems, we have a democratic listening style and a teaching style, and that's the way it's done here. Russia doesn't have that. No. Germany, old Germany did not have that at all. It was very rote, systematic Catholic schools in the old days. My sisters went through catechism processes, and they went through the Catholic process, and everything was rote, systematic. You follow the rules and don't ask questions. And then on top of that, by age 18, 19, we finally find out what we want to do, what we like to do, and why we're really good at what we do. And then that can be red, yellow, green, or blue. What I developed was the structure shows there are 64 potential structures of personality. That's why if you find someone who was one day a certain way, but the next day has changed their personality, like, whoa, and say, how are you? And say, I'm really stressed, but I don't want to talk right now. Give them room. Get out of your stress mode, come back to me when you're ready to talk. Same with your fellow employees, your reports. It's really critically important to ask the questions, where are you at? Regarding your industry, okay, this is again where I had the epiphany when, oh my gosh, I did the OMG many times. We all know that in what we do is we have our foundation, we have our structure, and we have our optimal. And the optimal is really, in essence, missing there. The optimal can be the roof, but it's also the cladding on the outside. And we all think, well, all houses are built on ground. All homes are built on terra firma, right? Really? Think about it. So as I go into this, I'm going to show you the passion and the system. And by the way, my assessments were validated by a PhD out of Fresno, California, so I want you to know they actually have the white paper that shows that I'm not speaking nonsense, that we actually did validity statements and verification that what I'm saying is actually validated by PhDs. So if we have architecture that's based on fire, think of all the retirees, by the way. This is a home. Fire is movement. Go, make it happen. And I am so amazed at how many people I know who have retired that are Mr. and Mrs. Gung or Ms. Gung Ho, make it happen. They resort to seeing the United States and Canada. Let's get into a system that makes things happen. And in architecture, we also see that people who are optimally wired with fire. You see that a lot of fire treatments are being enhanced on homes nowadays. More and more I'm seeing this happen. In the old days, you didn't have anything on your house. Now I'm seeing a lot of lighting treatments that you know they're happening at the base and they're shining up against the house accordingly. And these are just examples of fire. Air technology, I have been to Florida many, many, many times, and we have hurricanes in Florida. I'm sorry, and the storm surges are what they are, and too many homes have been washed away, Pensacola, throughout the Florida Keys, et cetera, et cetera. They realized that, and we have this in Lincoln City, by the way. We're developing it with our school structure, right? Lincoln City, the public reworked of evacuation zone for the upcoming tsunami. They have actually built structures up on pillars like this to get ready for the wave that's going to hit us. All 60 feet of it can hardly wait. So, and I live 100 feet, so I'm okay. So these are air structures. These are air structures. Well, they say, yeah, but they've got pilings and yeah, I know, okay. But the concept is it's above, its foundation is air. Who else in architecture was really well known for air? We all know this. Who was an air architect? You dang tootin', that's right, you nailed it. Frank Lloyd Wright was Mr. Cantilever. Yeah, I know, it's cantilever down. And the Huapai Nation in Arizona created the bridge that goes out over the Grand Canyon in the circular. Yes, I know it's tethered down by earth, we know that. But in essence, when you're walking out on the Huapai circular bridge, I'm sorry, the experience is air. Personally, I won't do it. I'm massively afraid of heights, but it is an air technology. Isn't it interesting that all of a sudden we have air technologies that have a foundation in terms of structure? Then, come on. They would not. Okay. Traditional is earth. We know earth is earth. Earth is what we see normally in construction. And as an example, this came out of Architectural Digest, Feb 2017. I just laughed. It said, we wanted the house to kind of disappear into the landscape. This is a green structure. I mean, to me, it looks like a mobile home. You know, really bad. But this was probably a $300,000-$400,000 structure that was crafted in the hills in Northern California. And it's clearly an earth house. And remember when I said that earth is horizontal? That's exactly what they did there to tie it into Mother Earth. Okay? It's really interesting in terms of where we go with this technology. Furthermore, then we have water. Water is definitely a foundation. We had air, we had earth, now we have water. Water is incorporated in terms of houseboats. That's a foundation, is water. It's not on terra firma. And also putting water around a structure gives it the influence or impressions of having water energies. When I was living in Los Angeles a couple years ago, the Disney Center in downtown Los Angeles, which is an amazing area of Los Angeles, it's completely rejuvenated the entire downtown structure. Lots of curvature, so the structure with the Disney Center is water energies. The optimal is flat roof, more or less, on the top, and very metallic, so the optimal is earth, and your foundation is earth, obviously, as well. But interesting how they use water energy. By the way, water is the most dangerous construct I can think of, right up there. If you don't have XY axis in construction, you start going into curves. Las Vegas has a structure on the Strip, tons and tons of water energy that they tried to capture. They engineering-wise mucked it up, and it's a disaster. And I think it's still empty. I still think, is it still empty?
Which one?
The one that's just it would be south of Caesar's Palace on that side of the road, and there's these really round glass structures with curves, and it was never occupied because of huge engineering flaws. Is the problem. And you go south of Caesar's Palace on that same side of the street, and there's that one area that has tons and tons of.
Is it the one that tried to look like Wynn, and Wynn was suing them, and that's what stopped the construction?
But there was also some I heard that there were engineering problems as well.
Because I've been recently there. They finally
Did they make
solved
it
the lawsuit, and they just painted those strips red to make it different, and they finished.
They went with fire.
They basically copied Wayne, and that's why the lawsuit happened.
If we're thinking of the same structure, because my cousin lives in Henderson. Her husband's a police officer there. We were talking. He said, Brent, that structure had engineering flaws. If it's the same one we're talking about, I wish I could have brought it up. So we'll talk about that later because I want to make sure I get the right one. Fire in terms of interior design is clearly we use fire and lighting on the interior structure, and we use air. Interesting enough, when you this is really big for what we do. If someone's an air energy, bringing the outside air into the structure is interesting, and also interior roofing that's heavy, that's yellow energy or or air energy, and there are people who are wired like that, and you'll see people say, I really want this, I want the outside to come into the inside. That's the air technology on that. Then we have water interior design. Now, this is incredibly expensive. What's not expensive is something treatment like this glass treatment here. Glass is water, by the way, folks. In fact, if you leave windows for a long period of time, what do? From the 1800s, what happens to glass? It's a liquid. It will shrink and buckle, and so it's overall. I know it's quartz, but it still will move. This was in my house actually. I used water as an optimal. I used these came from New Zealand, and these were tapestries from India. I had them sewn together, and then I put them up like water. I went to the Soviet Union in 1983, and a colleague of mine was an architect from Yugoslavia, and she and I went to go see a structure that was created in Russia at the time, in the Soviet Union, and they had curving, in the interior, they had curving ceiling structures that made it look like we were underwater. It was the most incredible sight I'd ever seen, and she, being an architect, she was just amazing, and she got really excited that such an unusual technology, back in the 20s, that when it was done. And then landscape and fire, we see this all the time. By the way, I use this, the Italians, I'll go into their cultural attributes. They use cypress trees, which are vertical in terms of Italian structures. If you look at Italian landscaping constructs, it's around fire technology. Air is open-aired environs, and we know this place. That's Shrunk Plaza, am I saying it right? Am I saying, I've been so far away from Portland. So that's world-renowned. We have landscape earth energies. I'll go into this why the Japanese, by the way, are culturally wired earth and water. And so when you go to the Japanese gardens, it's a lot of earth and water energies. Italians are culturally fire and water. There's a tremendous amount of columns and cypress and water technologies in use in Italian landscaping. The French are wired water. They're blue. French people are blue. They're very creative. You go into Paris, it's the most incredible city architecturally with all of the roundness and the gardens. And when you go to Versailles, it's all about water. There's even Netflix has done a series by a gentleman on French architecture, French landscaping and Italian landscaping, and he absolutely follows these constructs separately. I didn't even know that he was doing this. And it talks about various cultural constructs that I see with the French and with the Italians. English are more like the Japanese. They use a lot of plant structures that are supportive of each other, and I can go into that later. California, they've used a lot of on the outside of buildings in Los Angeles, it's becoming more and more popular to put succulents on the exterior, something we don't need to do that here. We do, it just comes naturally. We do have at the Portland Airport, think of the Portland Airport has a tremendous amount of the green on the walls, and then it has the blue glass structure. So the optimal at the Portland Airport is water. The walls at the parking structure is earth. It's earth walls with water because it's plants, and then obviously a foundation of earth. But the structure of moving through there is clearly an energy of air, as it should be, because we're moving people in and out, get them through. What you see unusual with Portland is it has all the temples of Babylon structure on the walls, and it makes it into the best airport in the world, right? It's one of the best in the world. Well, look at the architecture. They incorporated these technologies into that airport. Then the next one that we have is, if I would just give it to me, is water landscapes. And here's an example of a lot of water. And by the way, water can also be utilized in glass. Here's glass again in an outdoor landscape feature. Okay. And here in Los Angeles, this is an office complex. And here's a really kind of not a very pretty street there. They use water technology and glass in order to break it up and to have it more inviting and keep it cooler. Now, I ran into Dr. William Lidwell, PhD. He was University of Houston, and he talks about how colors can affect us in the science. And what shocked me was the colors were representational of the technology that I've been talking about, of the red, yellow, green, and blue. And as an example, if you're doing remodeling processes in restaurants, he says use green. Use green. McDonald's in Europe, when you go to Europe, McDonald's is green. It's not red. Here it's red. Starbucks is green. Look at the logo for Starbucks. It's green. So if you have clients that are in the restaurant business or any other customer business and they want to use green to soften down the energy of the customers, use green. Do not use red, do not use red, do not use red. Unless you want to have an aggressive, in-your-face, confrontational customer. If you want that, and you like that, then go ahead and do it. But generally, you won't want to do that. Interesting enough, they actually use red glasses for refills, free refills, and they use red. Red means stop. Red means this. And the red actually cut down 25% of the refills in the restaurant business, which is interesting enough. So you use purples, greens, and violets for your interior uses. And remember the green spaces that I showed before. You want to see the restaurant spaces of green and how Mother Earth actually welcomes people into a restaurant environment. You also, as you saw there, we talked about that with restaurants, the green. And then British Petroleum, look at BP, when they went green for many reasons to get away from the tremendous socio aspects that were going against their industry. BP was really suffering because of the petrochemical industry. And then, by the way, if you're doing any books, if you're doing green remodeling, if you do pamphlets, do use green if you are seen as this is Oregon, this is a green environment. If you use pamphlets to bring customers in that you're doing green remodeling, yes, use green. Normally, you would never use green in terms of normal publishing. It's usually a no-no. It's seen as not a great color. But eco is fine. If you're doing eco renovation, use green in your pamphlets, etc. However, when you're doing projects for the inside, for your customers, for remodeling, and if it's in the social services, therapy, psychotherapy, even in soft businesses where you want to have a calming environment, use your blues. Use your blues. Use your light blues and trim, or even throughout there. I've even seen blues even used as the ceiling. It calms people down. It makes the environs much more approachable. To the point that Dreamliner, when I take Dreamliner flights overseas, always I kept seeing blue on the Dreamliners because it's meant to calm you down. It also puts you to bed. Blue will be used. Let's see. Blue is used to put you to bed when you want to, excuse me, I apologize, misspoken. Blue wakes you up actually, so when you get to the other side, this will help you actually wake up and get going, to the point that Manchester Airport, and I've been to Manchester, God, I've been there, on bad flights, you have a blue environment which is to wake you up and to get you going. So it's like blue like the sky, it's time to wake up. It's the reds and the yellows that actually put you to sleep. So if you're ready to go to sleep and you want to get your jet lagging in shape, use your reds and your yellows into your eyes right before, like 2 hours before you go to sleep. Now, yellow is an interesting color. Yellow, in most cultures, yellow can be seen as a color. It goes both ways. It can be a color of group energy, group environs. It can be used in establishments to create a social atmosphere where people are chatting and standing, and then you want to move them into the Coliseum. So you'd put yellow in terms of a welcome center or whatever, and use yellow on the walls, then get them to the next place. You got to be careful with yellow because it's also going to be seen as a sickly color as well. So, and I always say go to gold. Go more towards your golds and you're going to be safer because golds are usually more presentable. Blue and yellow in this instance was saying, come on in, come in, eat and everything, but when you're sitting down, then have your purples and your greens and other colors when you want them to stay for a long time. Again, red means stop, green means go. I would say, who's been to the PRC, China? Anyone here been to China? From what I heard, green is red. So you go with the red because we're communists, let's go. And the green is the stop, is what I've heard. I don't know if that's still happening in China. I'm going to Vietnam this December. No, they don't do that either. So, red in the work environment is for those who wish to stop, focus on a situation, pay the bills, get action going. That is the only time you would use red in a remodeling situation. Doesn't action need to happen, and do you need attention to details, and do you need alertness? And will it make people actually pay attention and make things happen? And as an example, here's how to play tight, aggressive styles. I just showed this, and it's red to get someone to actually go forward, make it happen. And sleeping, again, light blue. You don't use light blue before you're going to bed because it says this is daylight, which is what we're seeing outside, which is rare. What you are seeing is your red yellows in order to say time to go to sleep. In auctions and website design, in auction houses, they found that blue was much more agreeable because you had much more agreeable auctioneer processes. If you use red, you're going to get much higher charges of aggression. So when you're doing remodeling processes, or if you're doing a website in this industry, use your blues to invite them in, their greens, whatever. Bring them in and have them rest with your website. If you have red, you can get almost too aggressive, and people may negotiate too aggressively with you. And as I said before, by the way, black is I use black because it shows black and white because it's an authority figure, so I use that in my presentation with my tie, but I didn't want to be too stuffy, so I didn't put on a suit because I knew I had remodelers. I put on my flannel, or excuse me, my cotton Oregon State, I hate the Beavers, I know, and had this on, and so, but I wanted to show more that I was coming from a place of authority in terms of what I was doing, so I used black as the color. And again, in selling, you want to sell with greens, not your reds. By the way, babies like blue. I didn't know that. Babies prefer blue and purple. So blue and purple, if you're doing remodeling for children, blue and purple environs is what the chosen color is. When you're in Europe, you see everything is yellow. You don't see the red fire truck down. The red is aggression. People get aggressive. No, the Europeans got it. They said, let's go yellow because it's a team environment. Hey team, get off the road. We're coming through. And in Europe as well, you see light blue in terms of the police officers. You do not see black, because black is seen as very aggressive, and so the American standard of, I watched a guy down in Curry County, he comes in with this black commando suit, and his pistol is right there, and he's just like this snarl, and I said, yeah, great being in Curry County. Boy, I want to call my police officer if I've got an issue. Not really a welcoming presence to me when I walked in the door. And in New Zealand, you see more of this as well. It's a shocker to me that when I come back here, times I see things, oh my God, it's so different, so aggressive. So in summary, coming back to this is that so you have your colors of the people and of the attributes within an environment in the remodeling. Red is aggressive. It speaks to the now, the present. It speaks of two concepts. If you've got a red person and they're saying, I need to know what we're doing right now. If you have a customer, what are we doing right now? Say, let's go see it. Red people want to physically see it. They don't want, what I'm doing right now, they don't want to hear this. This yellow chatty discussion, they don't want to hear it. They want to see it. Show me what we're going to do right now. I got my red glasses on. I'm really pissed off. I need to see this. Okay, so absolutely. You're the customer. Let's make you happy. Let's come over here and let's see what's going on. With a fellow employee, with a report, or your supervisor, whomever, again, red people, let's show it for what it is. Let's see it. Let's get to the point and let's get a resolve. Let's fix it. They calm down. They say, okay. By the way, for customers, your red customer, in my experience, are your most loyal customers. If you are a can-do, make-it-happen type person and you provide solutions to your customer, they'll come back again and again and again. You don't give them fluffy yellow stuff. Yellow is the talker. We had a lot of yellow out here. And I'm not going to point to anyone, but there was a lot of yellow going on out here. And they needed to relay information. It was very important, and they had to be in that role. The one thing you never do to a yellow person is you never question their role. You never say, I don't understand what you're doing. I don't get how you fit into this organization. Or if you say to the customer, you don't need to worry about that because I'm the one in charge. The yellow person is going to say, they're going to put a grin on their face, which is a grin stab, and they're going to wait until it's the best time for them and they're going to backstab you. The role of the yellow will backstab to get revenge because you've lessened their capacity in the role. Okay. Yellow can backstab harshly. Green is rigid, historical, facts, drawings. They're the ones who will sit down with you in the spreadsheets galore. I have clients that are green. The first thing I do when I say hello to them is I shake their hand and say, let's go break out the spreadsheets. And it's the weirdest thing. We'll lay out massive spreadsheets and we go into the numbers in depth, and the husband or the partner will say, you all are weird. And he's a sales guy or she's a salesperson. And the partner may be green. He may be green. I've had a bookkeeper. And we'll go into the spreadsheets and the past and the history. And so if you hear someone saying, I want to do what I've done before, I don't know where you're going, I like what happened with me, say, oh my God, let's break out, what did you do before? Let me see what it was that worked for you in your past. They're going to calm down and say, oh my God, you speak my language. Okay, this is what I did in my home in California. Can we do this here at Beaverton? You say, okay, let's break it out. The last one is the blue. This can be the most, I feel this color can be some of the most enjoyable energy out there because they're very, very creative. They're very, very visionary. they can also drive you completely insane. I want to do this. No, I changed my mind. I want to do this. No, I changed my mind. Let's create this. They have the ability to visualize so far down the pike. The best way to manage the blue person is say, why is it important to you? And let's plan what you would like to do and have your involvement and plan it out. And I want you in the process throughout this methodology. And let's keep talking about it to make sure I'm on track with your creative. Your creativity is so powerful. I need to see it. I'm never going to say that these are women and these are men. That's rubbish. Some of the most aggressive people in red are women. Okay? Some of the most blue creative people I've ever seen are guys, blokes. I'm serious. Some of your artists are just unbelievable. I have an artist from Mexico who did a painting for me. It's just unbelievable. He's blew off the charts. He's very introverted. He's a violinist. He's a piano player. He's the most amazing artist. But I would never have him do the numbers. This is left brain. This is right brain. Introvert, extrovert. Think who you are. What pair of glasses defines you? Think who you work with. What pair of glasses do they wear? Think of your customers. What pair of glasses do they wear? Where have you gone brilliantly, perfect on projects? And where have you smashed badly? Where is it? And think about their colors. Think about where the disconnect had occurred in each of those instances. And that starts to give you the insights as to what you're doing out there. And the main thing that I'm concerned about, what I care about, I'm here for the purpose of reducing the stress. I'm here for the purpose of the suffering, to cease the suffering that we all experience, even with family members. we all have family members. We all go to reunions. And what is it in a family reunion that shows all of these colors? And where is it that we have conflicts? Or where do we get along with folks? But where you have conflicts, you say, and the key is meet halfway. Meet halfway. Say to someone, I know I'm a red charging, go get 'em type person. I know you're a creative blue person. How can we meet halfway and what do we need to do? Let's speak my language, let's speak your language. Where can we stop the suffering and make this a great project and so that they get what they want and you make the money that you deserve? At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And that you have a lot of fun doing it. Right. Okay, I will open it up for Q&A. And we've got, well, they say I've got 20 minutes. It can be less than that, but ask away. Things that you've come across, projects that you've been across, frustrations, disasters, successes. Blast me with any questions that you have.
I think in a way it's not the first time I'm visiting some kind of a seminar in terms of like how to please any type of person, basically we can name it. And there are different theories out there.
Yes. How
people differentiate different groups.
Yes.
In a way, my personal opinion, and again, it's just my opinion.
Sure.
You can sometimes bend yourself and maybe see the other side, but most of the time, and I think it's normal, like you just work with people that like you for who you are, and you work with people who you like. I mean, it's not realistic I can relate completely to all 3 other colors or whatever, or 20 other personalities. Yeah. So I think in a way when people keep like jamming down your throat, you have to understand everyone, you have to be able to work with everyone. It's not realistic.
Yeah.
Yep.
For you it's not realistic. There are some people who master this and do quite well. I have a client who's actually a contractor, very, very, very successful, makes a lot of money, does really well. He flat out tells me that if he has husbands that are wired like this, if he has wives who are wired like this, and then they have a husband that's wired like this, he says no. He says, no, I'm not going to do this project. That's the end of the story. Because he says, every single time that I do this project, it's a disaster. So at least he knows now what he's going to say for yes and no. All the other aspects that work for him for the colors, he gets this. He goes, oh my God, he goes, I can tell you every single client I've had. I absolutely know where I will never go again if I have a real hard-charging red woman driving the project and I have a very, very introvert, passive male. It never works for him because he's not wired to deal with that. He can't understand.
That's what I'm saying.
You're exactly right.
You can't deal with everybody.
You're exactly right. So know what you can do and know what you can't. And it's okay to say no. There is that. You can say no. I had customers all over the world on this. I had to learn to deal with this because I can't just say I'm not going to deal with you. I had clients everywhere. that came in different personality attributes, and I had to work with them because that was my function. So I did behave separately for each one. My Parisian client from Paris was as different from my Moscow client, was as different from my London client, which is as different from my Sydney client, and each one I would talk to differently. So no, I actually had to yield my language and my projection to them separately. And each one I did separately in how I communicated with them. And I didn't like it personally, but I had to do it.
That
Okay.
is
Good
my
question.
opinion. In a way, it's like a lot of people sometimes get obsessed. Oh, I have to relate to anyone. I just relax. There's enough of people you can relate to.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Stop
that's true.
obsessing with things don't make any difference.
Blue can drive you. Blue can be frustrating because it's like, where are we going to go today? Today's a brand new blue day, is what I used to say. It's a brand new blue day. Where are we going to go today? And I had to try and keep bringing it in. Are we on the plan? And then they'd say, oh, that's right, we have a plan. So I had to kind of almost manage them, reverse manage in that respect. You're right.
And it's sometimes I notice I work actually perfectly with people who maybe I'm red in your system and they're more blue because they have hard time making the decision. And I absolutely love the fact that I weigh out pros and cons and make decisions right there. I'm like, oh my gosh, it would have taken me years, and just go with it.
And then there you have your
So
style.
it's sometimes the opposite who you work the best with.
Yeah, and that can be the truth too.
That's what they pay me for.
With
Make their decisions.
There you have it. There you have it. And they say, I respect your red. I respect your red. And say, let's make the decision, let's go. You're from Russia, is that? Because we met before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So by the way, it's interesting. I worked for a company in Salem, and we had many Russian employees, and I knew in my gut that Russians were blue. They're very creative people. It's poetry, architecture, science, creative engineering. I knew they were blue. There was a Russian, had them profiled, they were blue. They were blue in the instinctive at the bottom. They were blue, genetically they were blue, because Russians are very, very creative peoples. They're systematized to be red-green. The educational structure in Russia is sit at your desk, learn this, rote, you will learn your mathematics and everything else. There isn't a real democratic, let's have an encounter group. You don't do that. Or at least in the past. I don't know about maybe now. But
No, if you want to be disrespected, that's what you would do.
in
You
that
only
kind-
respect it if you have an opinion and you're ready to fight for it.
That's right. That's
Then
right.
people listen to you.
That's right. That's right.
Any other way, nobody's going to listen to you. or
Not going to listen
respect
to
you.
you. That's right. That's
I mean, it
right.
might be 100% right, but
Yeah.
you're not saying this is the 100% truth, and
Yeah.
that's it. Nobody listens to you.
How I got along with my Russian colleagues is I always had a strong one-on-one relationship and was very reduced. And we spoke very clearly about, I'd been to the Soviet Union, and they were fascinated by that. I had some documents from Russia, in Russia, and they were blown away by that. I developed a relationship. I miss them terribly. I don't see them as much, and because we had lots of discussions about Russian philosophy, literature, they loved it. Russians are blue, they're blue. French are blue too. You get along with French clients quite well if you understand them and appreciate them and tell them that they cook the best cook. They are the best chefs in the world. They have the most incredible architecture that can blow your mind away. They are the diplomats of the world. You speak the truth about the French, you will have a French energy for life. They will respect that you understand French culture. It is an amazing culture, and I deeply love the French culture. I pretty much respect almost all the cultures out there. When I go to Germany, I'm being invited to Berlin to do this technology. What's the first thing that I do when I show up to the group of 100 people that are going to sit in my group? What's the first thing that I'm going to do?
In Germany?
Say again?
In Germany?
I can say it, yeah, in Germany. What's the first thing that I do?
Like
Stand
in
in front.
Russia, you need to show you have authority.
I have authority. They know that because I have the degrees. I have the MBAs. I have the.
Serve them a beer.
I give them there. Do curryverse. That's right, curryverse. I tell them everything that I'm not about. This is a theory. This is not a science. This is only for this particular area. I do not have expertise as an engineer. I'm not an architect. I'm not. Germans will immediately raise their level of trust with me because I'm not this talky, I can solve the world Disney character coming from the USA. They will have no trust in me if I sit there and tell them everything is Disneyland. They will only trust me when I tell them exactly what I'm not about, and then all of a sudden they will calm down and say, thank you, you've put limitations and systems and history on who you're not. And now we can start talking. But Berlin's very creative. Berlin's the city of creativity. Probably one of the most creative cities right now going on, I think. Berlin's just hot. So they're going to love talking about what ifs, about creativity. Good point. What other question?
So when I first was exposed to transactional analysis,
Yes.
it was all about parent-adult child.
That's right.
And understanding,
That's right.
Understanding
Yes.
the interactions in relationships.
That's right. I'm okay, you're okay. Book.
And
From the 60s.
what it really did for me at the time, I finally came to understand, was it gave me a vocabulary to talk about and a structure in which to think about things that I was experiencing every day, but had no way to formalize or talk about my experience.
That's right.
But you know, now, okay, so now I have a framework to hang new concepts.
That's right.
And I can apply that to situations that I'm involved in.
Yes.
And see different things about them that I was experiencing before, but never understood why the interactions were happening.
That's right. That's exactly right. What I love about the technology is that because I have an MBA in cross-cultural communications from Arizona State, I am fascinated by cultures around the world. Why do we do different things? You know, when we do certain things that in this culture, I wouldn't do them in other cultures. And I love traveling overseas because I get it. And New Zealand is so much like Oregon, it's almost creepy, and yet it's not. There's some things about New Zealand that are specific to New Zealand, but overall, Oregon is almost a cut and paste of New Zealand. It's really interesting. And Australia is a cut and paste of California. It's very interesting. Red yellow cultures are Indian, South Asian, and cultural constructs. Germanic peoples of Austria, Germany, Poland, Czech Republic are predominantly green first, secondary red. Chinese culture is predominantly red first, secondary green. Get the project done and we'll worry about the foundation later. How many buildings in China have we seen go over? You know, it just blew me away. Oh, there goes the, they're like, good God, you know, what are you guys doing? Germany, by the way, Berlin is a low-lying city. Interesting, isn't it? Low-lying. France is blue. Italy is red-blue. Take charge, make it happen with creative constructs. England is yellow-green. Look at the gardens. Everything is about how the group of the gardening keeps tabs on other plants so that it's self-managing. How did they rule the largest empire in the world? They knew how to put the systems in place in order to create self-governance. That's how they did it. It was only 60 million people, and they ruled 2/3 of the world, or not quite that much, but half the world, physically, landmass. It was unbelievable. Because they understood how to make the yellow happen in tangent with the green. You'll go to Britain, they'll tell you what they think you want to hear, and then they'll think about what they really mean, and they'll do something completely different. You know, really think about it. It's very interesting. When I go to the UK, it's just always funny. They'll put on the Queen speak, and then they'll go off and do something else. It's very interesting. Architecturally, wide open spaces with systematic structures. Okay? Italy is everything is about the grandness, and Rome is, I love Rome. Rome is an incredible city. Grandness of the Rome and a creative energy.
And American.
Say again.
And American.
An American is we are all four colors because we are so many different cultures. My grandfather was Native American. He was raised on a reservation in Oklahoma, and he's Choctaw and Cherokee, and he spoke Cherokee as his first language growing up as a child. Yellow. Everything is about the tribe. He was a very tough man, really tough. He was good to me, but he was very tough. The only time I saw him soften his heart was when we went to the Pendleton Roundup. We went to the Pendleton Roundup. It was one of the few times I saw him smile, and was heartfelt because he was with the people. And it was about returning to the yellow. So, but in American society, in Eastern Washington State, he was, he was red and then some green, but he was red. But he only softened to yellow. He only softened when he was around other natives. At the Pendleton Roundup is when I saw him smile and was loving to the people. So. Yellow energies are Polynesia. When I go, I love Polynesia. I go back home to New Zealand, and I'm going to the Cook Islands in not this December, but in 2 Decembers, and I'm going back home. I'm going home. And Polynesia's home for me, and the most loving, most wonderful people on the planet, and the biggest people on the planet. You don't muck with a Polynesian, and that's a woman to begin with. And it's a matrilineal society. The women are the ones who run what's going on. And they are yellow. You do everything to the construct of the yellow, and you're always making sure that you're following in line with the cultural standards of Polynesia. And what do they have in Polynesia? Large open falaise, very group-oriented. Everything is group. They don't do these tight little shacky things. Everything. Their shacks are actually no walls. When you go through Samoa, Western Samoa, Western Samoa, not American Samoa, but Western Samoa. You walk down the pathway, all of the walls are gone. It's open. It's yellow. Again, yellow architecture. I would like to do some of the Polynesian constructs that I saw, some of the architecture I saw there, but it wouldn't last. No. It wouldn't last in our environment. But God, you gotta love it when you go down there. It's just probably the most amazing experience in Polynesia. I'm talking too much. That's my dang yellow. Any other questions that you have? Does it resonate? Do you have any concerns? You absolutely can get in touch with me if you have any questions. I didn't pass this out. My apologies. But I want you to know that if you have any questions, Dirk, can you pass out your brochure too? Please?
Yeah, in my session.
Oh, in your session, there you go. So if you have any questions, you can ask me, you can email me. That'd be great. And
So can I ask you, so like red would be like if you had a customer that has a car, Ferrari, Prius,
Bingo.
Camaro, Corvette,
Bingo.
yellow, I'm kind of trying to figure out what a yellow would be.
For you, it's
SUV
red.
kind of?
It would be more like SUV. You're right. It would be more a group like family oriented with large groups would be like your SUV. I have a Highlander and I put a lot of people in there. So you're exactly right. So these would be your, now think about Italian Ferraris, red and blue. There's a lot of water energy in those Ferraris. When it's a boxy car, you know the box cars that we see? You'd be a red and green person. And low-lying car that's systematic. Yeah.
Do you have any tools for measuring your own employees or prospective employees? For this
So, good point. So, on my website, if you go to systemsapp.com, you can, for free, there's no charge, you can actually profile yourself. You have to have one person who's the lead, like an HR manager or a manager. They take the profile or have anyone in the company take them. And then you can invite the fellow colleagues on systemsapp.com to take the profile. And then you can see how you all are wired and there's no charge. You can call me up and I can give you summary feedback. If you really want, like, let's get into this, then you have to call me and we'll talk at a different level. But for free, you will get that initial feedback. So, blue cars, creative cars, yeah, water.
They walk.
They walk. They walk.
They keep it creative.
Also, there's, I think, of VW bugs. You know, there's big glass. It's like a bowl. You know, is a blue and a yellow energy that goes on there. These are take charge. This is anything that's a systematic. Remember, Japanese is green and blue, so your Japanese cars are going to follow absolutely perfection in engineering, and they have flow to their design, the Nissans and the Hondas and so forth. But you'll see a lot of blue-green. A lot of Japanese culture is imbued in our technology that we utilize. Chinese technology, remember, they take charge first, and then we'll get around to the details later. You think about that. I don't want to fly a plane. I'm sorry. You gotta have this right if you're gonna fly a plane. Boeing didn't even get this right recently, right? Mm-hmm. That was, you read the stories, is where they were all about this. Hit the targets, get the sales out, make it happen. Oops, sorry, Ethiopian Airlines. Oh, we're so sorry about that. Couldn't believe what I read. Oh, okay, well, we'll get around to getting you information on the green that keeps the plane from ditching. That really freaks me out. They need to get real clear about who they are again. You know, I'm sorry, I'm just going to speak bluntly about that, but that's rubbish. Good points. So you can profile your profile and come back to me. And I'm in Gold Beach, but I'm up and down the I-5 corridor all the time. So, and my mom's in Lake Oswego, so I always got, God, I gotta come back here. Go see Mom. So I'm here always. Thank you so much for your time. Really.
Make sure you sign the clipboard before you leave and get your credits.